Greetings everyone, this is Lightstar. Welcome back to the channel. I'm super happy you guys are all here, and I have something very new for you today. This is something that my beloved Standswithbear and I wanted to put out to all of you. And we have the most interesting and fascinating conversations that happen all the time, very spontaneously. So we decided to record what we were talking about and put it out to you guys as a pilot first, and then if it's something that we get a lot of feedback on and we get a lot of comments that say that you guys want this kind of material, then we'll go ahead and make it into a podcast or regular series. So we want to get your feedback. That's the main thing. The ambiance that you're going to be experiencing, it's like the atmosphere of being in our living room by the fireplace with the rain and just listening in, and we're just having a conversation in the living room. So we wanted to have the fire going and just having that, hearing it in the background, and it's really fun and also adds to the whole atmosphere and ambiance of this fireside chat. So as this continues and you listen to it, I would love to get your comments and your feedback. If you would like something like this, or if you have any other suggestions, please feel free to put a comment in the YouTube channel or even on any social media platforms that we put this out on, so we could obtain your feedback. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you might suggest. We get on so many different, like I said, topics, everything from star seeds to what star seeds like to talk about, 3D timelines, shifting, Mandela effects, all different kinds of topics that we end up talking about, and life in general. And I think it could really be helpful for people to get some insights, spark conversations of your own. And so that's why we wanted to put this out. So we hope you enjoy the conversation. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel here. YouTube likes to call it subscribe. I like to call it joining the tribe. So make sure and hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up. All that good stuff. Also make sure to hit the notifications bell so you don't miss a thing when new content comes out. So without further ado, let's get into our fireside chat with Lightstar and Standswithbear. Enjoy!
Lightstar, so tell me, how old were you when you very first began to speak your light language? How did it make you feel? And I'm curious, that little girl that spoke that language, I would imagine that'd be quite a shock. Like, what is this coming through me? So,
well, I was about nine years old when it first started to come out, and it was not sure what the language was, but it was something I had never heard before in myself, speaking, and it was just really shocking, but it just came out really naturally. I felt like it was just a natural occurrence, and I didn't really know what it was, to define it as something, but I felt like it was just an innate part of me.
Did it feel like it was more natural to you than like the English we speak now?
Oh yeah, it was like the first initial language that you would come out with, that just, you don't have to be taught how to speak it. It's just something that's within you.
So you were 9 years old when that happened?
I was about 9, somewhere around there.
So let me ask you, what was the next episode of that? How old were you when you spoke it for the second time?
I shut the whole thing down because I was not clear on what I was doing.
So it freaked you out?
It freaked me out, and I was really uncomfortable, I think, with it because nobody I knew around me, none of my friends spoke it. I didn't really talk to anyone about it. I believe my mom, at the time, understood to an extent what that was because she was much more open and spiritual about that, but nobody my own age or any of my friends. So I started to feel like I was weird. or different, or maybe a little crazy. And so I just really turned the volume down on the whole thing and shut it off completely after that.
That's the one travesty that I feel is out there in the world for children, because when you have sensitive children like that, they begin to break into the truth of who they are, the reality of who they are, as opposite of the matrix, so to speak, or the what we've been taught that we are and who we are. But that child, I've always said, is closer to God than anybody.
Yeah.
That child is the keys to heaven. That child is all the magic, the mystery, the conditioning of wanting to know more, wanting to learn more. It's an absolute perfect opportunity to go beyond that of the human self.
Yeah, and even for myself, as open as my mom and my dad really were, spiritually speaking, and always been open-minded to that, you would think that I would just be then, oh, well then I could just open the floodgates and let everything come out. But no, it's not like that, because we are truly conditioned from our culture, even beyond our existing, mom and dad, and in our household. It still pervades, I think, outside of us, into our classmates, into our schools, and every place for our friends, and every place we're going. And if we don't see that experience opening, or we don't see it as the norm as a kid, as a child, as, you're going to shut it off. You're going to want to shut down because you just don't think it's normal.
They call this social engineering. They play it out like it's a new construct, which it's not. Social engineering has been going on for thousands of years. They just didn't have a name for it. This conditioning that's happened so many times. We have been. It's like when we allow our energies to when we allow our energies to go forward and to have that allowance come in of things of the impossible. But as I've said many times, the first lie your parents tell you is, honey, that's just your imagination.
Yeah.
Because you're closer to God than anybody, because you just came directly from Source. Then you have the ability to see other realms, feel other energies. Those little unseen friends that you play with,
right?
That's a real thing. That's just as real and tangible to you as picking up a glass of orange juice and drinking it. But to everybody else, they're like, oh, well, it's just a thing with them. Or like the babies we hear having star language,
that's
just having a full conversation back and forth.
If you see children, young babies talking to each other, two kids, two very, very small kids, before they even speak any English, French, German, any of those languages, and you just hear them talking back and forth with each other, and they completely understand what they're saying to each other.
They do.
And you wonder, we have the ability to tap into that innate life force energy that is just beyond, whether you call it telepathic, whether you just call it knowingness, whether you call it just straight to source, straight to direct to consciousness. As you come in, before you're even taught these languages, we're taught the conditioned languages here, and we're taught conditioning right here to only the social norms, and then that's it. We are not taught to go beyond. Now, there are some places, like if you go to Waldorf school or Montessori schools, they teach you to be creative, be intuitive, expand yourself. So I think those kids that grow up in that environment maybe learn or get to expand themselves a little earlier, which I think would be better for all of us in those types of environments, because you get to play, you get to experience it, and you don't have all these conditioning saying no. Right, the word no. Isn't that the first word that we learn?
Absolutely.
It's also
Absolutely.
No, don't do that. No, don't touch that. No, don't go there. No, it's like
I've always
world
felt
of no's.
that those Montessori schools were like the very first schools of the starborn. And people say it was for people of privilege, and they look down on them because it's a privilege. I think the original people that put that whole thing together knew about the Starborn that was here and wanted to have a separation of the normality of the other school systems, because there's a lot of chaos in those school systems and a lot of distractions and a lot of social engineering and all that, crap they got to go through. Those schools were meant to fine-tune their abilities. And I'd be really curious to track down people that were part of that school and see what they've become, see what that school led them to doing. Because I guarantee it's not
They're the ones that are led to greatness, right? They're the ones that are stepping forth and doing all the, not just the creative stuff, but they're probably the ones coming up with all the solutions, right? Because it trains you, and you go through those schools to be innovative and to, so the engineers, the ones coming up with all of the new designs for, the creative, innovative work. And all of those ideas are going to be coming from those kids, probably.
It wouldn't surprise me if Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, that amazing series, it wouldn't surprise me if he was part of one of those schools. Because look at what one man did for the entire world. Just through that series, he created rocket scientists, people that were engineers, people that actually took all of his blueprints and made them a freaking reality.
Right.
And that's such an amazing thing to me. I was very privileged of meeting, through a dear friend of mine, I met his niece, Gene Roddenberry's niece, and I asked her once, I said, has he ever talked to you how he got the idea for all these episodes? She said, yeah. She said that he has a journal by his bedside, and at nighttime he would have all these dreams that would come to him, and he would write them down the next morning, and later on that became the episode. Yeah. So I felt literally from the other side of the stars, they were giving him the chronological history.
Like dream time.
The history of what's going on out there.
That's when you know your dreams are not just your dreams.
Yeah.
Okay, that is we're dreaming in living color. Those of us that dream in color. That's probably another.
That really is, because most people don't dream in color. That's a very unique thing.
Yeah, not everybody dreams in color.
Yeah.
But I guess just having those dreams, those colorful, literally colorful dreams with all those interesting. I mean, we could probably I bet you everybody could write a book or make a movie based upon their own dream time.
Oh,
I would
absolutely.
just venture to guess it's not just Gene Roddenberry, but just most people just discount it and just kind of go, oh, it's a bunch of garbled gook, or just a bunch of mess, and just discard it. But if you really think about it, and you were to, I kept a journal for many, many years, so I always track my dreams. But even if you just went back, you could create the most fantastical stories based upon your dreams.
My dream time is
Except yours are
a
more
hybrid
battles.
between Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
Yours would be like the battle of the, whatever. It's like you have the battle dreams.
When I'm having dreams of being on a crew, and we literally stealthed the shuttle. We were in a shuttle, and it wasn't even a ship, but we bounced out of the shuttle, went down into a reptilian world stealthily, and landed next to this huge building, blew the side of the building out, and got all the prisoners and refugees that they had taken, and we're like, go, get in the ship, and lasers flying everywhere. I mean, those are my kind of dreams.
That's why I cannot sleep in the same room there. That's just the exact reason why. Some of us cannot handle that type of
Well, it's interesting
energy.
because in a native relationship, the man and the woman, they do sleep in separate rooms. And it's because they both have their own dream time.
Yeah, your own
They
dream
both have
time.
their own ancients to speak with them and work with them in tandem with
Except
each other.
when they were in the teepees, they weren't obviously staying in the same.
Yeah,
So this is, you're talking the modern day.
yeah, modern day. I'm just talking about They each have
Well,
their separate.
what would have been
It's
going?
like each of them are honoring each other's energy.
What would have been going on in the teepees going on back then? Because they didn't sleep separately.
Maybe a lot of Indian babies.
Although, I bet you anything, and I'm not for sure on this, but like, I would imagine when the women had their cycle, they would not sleep in the teepee, right?
Yeah,
Because
that,
they were supposed to
they
sleep.
were separated when that time
They
was
were
happening.
supposed to sleep
They
outside
wouldn't
of
let them
it.
come around the tribe.
And because, you know, who knows, but then that would give them their own dream time, I guess, at least that time in the month or something. But it's really fascinating, though, as far as dreams go. We could probably spend a whole, you know, conversation just on dreams alone and just go
for
down the
years,
rabbit hole there.
people asked me as a professional native flute player why I wasn't doing traditional stuff, in Cherokee, why wasn't I doing traditional? One, I wasn't raised traditionally in the Cherokee way. And two, all I ever wanted to do when I was creating my music, we hear all the time to the elders, our ancestors came from the stars.
Yeah.
And most natives forget that our ancestors came from the stars. I don't just talk about it, I live it, breathe it, drink it, eat it. I mean, that's everything my entire life. So simply, the music I create, I'm just bringing it back to the ancestors and making that bridge back with my music. And that's why it's so unique. Everything I do, spoiler alert, I can't read notes to save my life. Everything is 100% by ear. And all my music I create is channeled. I mean, like all of it. It's like I hear it in my head first, and then I piece together what I hear in my head.
Do you ever have dreams, speaking of dreams, do you ever have dreams of music in your dreams? Like, do you have songs that come to you?
I do, and sometimes it just stays with me, and I'll go and I'll try to create that on the keyboard or whatever. It's like,
or like you're in the, not even in dreams, right? You're in the shower or something like that, getting ready, and all of a sudden the song tune just comes out of nowhere, and then you have to go write it down real quick or record it or something.
When I played in bands back then, we like 30 plus songs. I wrote like 29 of them, and it's all because I would hear it here, and the dynamic of when I would create with my band. Because I can't read notes, save my life, I would just walk into the bass player, this is what I hear.
Right.
And then he would follow, and then I would tell the guitarist, and then this part I hear, and I would piece by piece tell him what I hear, and oftentimes I would jump behind the drum set and play the beat that I hear, and then the song just came together. Then the easy part was writing the lyrics. Once the song was completed, the music part, I would write the lyrics to it. And,
even though you did not come from a background where any of that was supported, like we were talking about earlier, how, the conditioning, and you grew up in that, like, really locked down, just subdued environment that was not creative or any of that, you still had it coming out anyway. So I think that's just telling of, like, it isn't always the condition that you're put in, and I said that earlier, that it is conditioning, and we talked about that, but you know what? There's people that come out of doing creative work that were not at all allowed to, so then you have these spontaneous, what makes that come out? Why did it come out when you were so, in this like 3D environment, as a young kid, and not encouraged to express that. So
I think it's a force that cannot be stopped.
It's really interesting. Like
the force,
you could
literally.
You could say it's conditioning, and that's we're all conditioned. But then, it's really.
My mother tried really hard to keep me away from the music. She wanted me to have no part of that because she had a beef with my dad, my biological dad, who was a country western, professional country western player. He played with Porter Wagner, he's played with Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, all the big names. And he was kind of a big deal back then. He played about 12 different instruments. But my mom, they had a falling out, and she wanted me to have nothing to do with that. And the harder she pushed me not to do it, the harder I pushed back to do it. And I became...
The will.
Yeah, it's like...
The will and the spirit.
It's literally, I had the musician gene in me. And my brother and I, Daryl, are the only musicians in my dad's entire lineage. He had several other children. One of them died, David died. You know, we didn't even know about him for like 30 years, but he's had quite a few other children. None of them were musicians, just me and Daryl. And Daryl, my brother Daryl was amazing. He was one of Arizona's top drummers. And he used to warm up to Rush, which is like the hardest drum technique that you could possibly do. I mean, he had this massive drum set that he would work with, and it was all from my dad's genes. My dad.
Well, that's what I mean. I think that it doesn't really matter as much what your environment is. Of course, it does matter. I mean, obviously, it's going to be much easier for you if you come out having that expression and you have the parents that, you know, let you do. It helps. It makes it easier. But I still see people like you, or, you know, I know someone that I worked with in the construction, when I was in the construction field, not me doing live construction, but I was in marketing working for construction
you
companies.
You just see it in the hard hat.
It's like, not out there with the hammer, like, yeah, let's go, you know. But I was working for a restoration and construction company doing marketing and, you know, all sorts of different things. And this one guy, it was the roofing company for the restoration company I was working for at the time. He was the sweetest man. He was an older gentleman, head of roofing, and he was the most gentle, nicest, kindest man you could ever meet. Everyone loved him, George. Everyone loved George. But yet, I learned about his life. I learned about his past and his childhood because he talked to me. I was on the side working in the area he was, and we'd have these conversations. He grew up in foster homes. He was tossed around from different foster homes to different foster homes. He was abused in several of them. And so you think about someone's life like that, you know, and he just completely turned it around, you know, and just, you would not know that was his life and how he was raised. And he went on to do just the most amazing things, you know. He was head of roofing and he had his own roofing company, but he was just such an amazing man. And I just wonder, so that's telling too, that it doesn't really matter about your...
You know, all the different conferences we've done with Sedona Cosmic Awakening, and I've said many times, you know, what we do for a living is we create Jedi and superheroes, right? And the one conference I was at, stories like what you just told me are exactly what conveys what I was trying to let the audience know. Okay, the commonality to become that Jedi, to go beyond the norm of being human, so to speak, is one thread: trauma. Trauma creates superheroes. Trauma created the Jedi. Trauma creates people of merit and magnitude, and people that stand up when others would sit down. People that will not go quietly into the night. Those things, and I tell all my clients when I do sessions with them, I said, I want you to do this. Every time something traumatic happens to you, pick it up as a golden jewel.
Yeah.
Put it in that shield. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until you become impenetrable. That trauma is what forges, because think about a diamond.
Yeah.
How's a diamond
That's
created?
what we always say
right?
too, yeah. By
Pressure
and
all around.
And that really is, funny you mentioned this because I was just thinking about this yesterday. Literally, I was thinking about that, where how everybody's gets, you know, their gifts or they traverse a difficult time or something where they get past it is from a trauma or something, you know, that pushes you to do something different or to make your life different or to look at things differently. I know me, I had that accident that happened to me that was supposed to take me out, that ended up being a catalyst that, you know, pushed me into different directions and all these things that we just have to realize. And like that guy George, who he is just decided, you know, he wasn't going to be like that. He's like, I'm not going to be a product of my past. You know, he just made that decision and decided to do it differently. And I think it's no different than like if you are raised in an abusive family and you have an abusive mom or dad or something like that. If you have that, you're either going to be that yourself when you become a parent, or you're going to choose, I'm not going to do that to my children because that was done to me. And I'm going to do everything I can to not, I'm going to do the opposite of that. And so you can make those choices, right? That's choice, that's free will that we have. Even though we say it's conditioning, we ultimately can get past the conditioning by just literally making the choice to do it differently.
I think too, something that lends to that is if you've had past lives as
past, present, future, all at the same time.
Those individuals, like you've been an African American in one life. You went through all that slavery thing in one life. And then we come into this life and we reflect, and that's still a part of us, so we remember that.
Because it's happening now.
So then we don't, you know, when everybody else is calling everybody, you know, this or that, names, the N-word or whatever like that, we don't participate in any of that because we've been through that. We knew what it was like to be a slave, so we're not racist. We know exactly what happened and what was going on, so we don't become racist. We don't, you know, same with, you know, dying in Auschwitz, when we died in Auschwitz, okay? We have like an understanding of what that is, and that's why we fight very hard for nothing like that to ever happen again.
But what if it's actually, because we know past, present, future is all happening at the same time, right?
In the multiverse,
we're just the ones that make linear time here. We're just in this construct, we make linear time out of being here. Our consciousness is aware of this linear time. But if it's all happening right now, then you would be accessing your past life as the slave, as the whatever, and you would be pulling in
reference
that stream of reference to know here and now. Like, do I want to be very, you know, I don't know, I guess like, do I want to have insecurity, or do I want to have, be less than or not have worth because I was a slave, or do I want to utilize that as something to springboard off of to actually help other people even?
Exactly.
You know?
And I think that's a lot of what's going on with the Starborn. We have like, you know, that ideology I use where the trees before the forest, right? Like you walk through, most people walk into a forest and then do a Wikipedia of that tree and everything about the tree. But they don't have the purview to be able to see the fox that just ran to the right-hand side, or the butterfly that flew over this direction. They just see the tree. And I think as Starborn, our perspective is 360, like Jedi, 360 degrees around us, and we see everything coming at us. We see all the energetic things that are flowing in between people. We see if like there's a bully picking on somebody, we can see the energy coming and sucking the energy from that person. Right. You know, we
sucking the life out of them.
Yeah, we see things that other people do not, and I think people that are sensitive like that, we have a responsibility to teach others to do better. We have a responsibility to show them what they're actually doing, because many of them don't realize what they're doing. If you went up to that bully and said, I want to tell you something, do you know what you're doing right now? Without even recognizing what you're doing, and then just literally point it out. And I think when they have that reference point, it will change a person's life.
Sometimes they don't get it until it actually happens to them.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's like the reflection, because you can't just go up to a bully and say, do you know what you're doing? Or they're like, I don't really care. You know, like,
yeah,
they have
they're
to,
in the moment, they don't care.
In the moment, but if they have something that happens to them, which is usually what happens when we see in a movie with a bully, and then the kid is always getting squelched and picked on, and then he finally rises up and brings it back to the bully and does the same thing, and then now the bully's like, oh, whoa, okay, you know.
But again, trauma. The bully never feels trauma, unless I take that back. The reason he becomes a bully is because at home,
at home
he's being bullied himself.
Right.
So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Or he's being led to pick on other people because, maybe his dad or his mom, could be either one, either party, is the one that's like saying, you're a wuss, you can't do anything,
exactly.
And then they just end up having to.
And it's also, they become poster children of what not to do.
Right.
They're already in a family of alcoholics, so they won't do that, or drug abuse, and they won't do that, but they're still the bully, right?
Or they will do it, depending on their choice.
Their reference is when that kid rises up and whips their butt in front of the school, it humbles them. And from then on, that experience, he will be a better person. Again, trauma, which is the catalyst.
Or they get to a certain age, I think, too, sometimes, and they just realize what they did. I know there was a bully or kind of someone like that in school for me in high school, and it wasn't just me, it was like the person would just make fun of everyone, and just constantly put people down and make fun of them and all that. And then I know that later on in life, I think they reflected back on, it took that long for that person to kind of just go, wow, I was kind of a jerk, and then they finally changed their ways.
Well, what's the old adage? Time heals all wounds.
Time.
And I'm proof of that. And the reason is, a few weeks ago, a friend of mine in Montana that I was playing in a band with, we had a skirmish between us and bad blood, a lot of bad blood, and we went our separate ways. But that was a catalyst for me, because then I went on to being a DJ and doing video editing for a radio station out there, and then it catapulted me in a different direction, him in a different direction. His whole life changed, my whole life changed, and about 3 weeks ago, he reached out to me, and I reached out back to him, and we both apologized to each other. And now we're closer than ever.
Reflection.
Yeah, we both apologized, and the wounds, after 14 years, the wounds were healed between us. And both of us were like, that's water under the bridge. I was an idiot.
Yeah.
You were an idiot. I'm sorry. I love you, man. It should have never happened.
See these things earlier.
And so, it's all.
It would be nice if we could see these things earlier, right?
To
be able to catch them before they get to be 40, 50 years old, and you're like, oh, sorry. It's like, wow. But
and if you break it down to its most basic component, I've come to the realization, whoever comes into your life, whether it be longevity or whether it be for a brief time, love the lunchtime, so to speak. Every single person that comes to your life, good or bad, is there for one reason. They're a catalyst to the highest version of yourself.
Well, and you have karma, and that's a whole other topic, but you have, things that you have to work out with people, and, certain
Well, I think that's a topic we should save for the next time.
But I guess this conversation went into different areas, but we were starting off with the fact of, we started off talking about a few different things that having to do with the imagination and squelching of that imagination from the kid and from your children, and how they get to grow up, and how some of them get to express in different ways, whether they were shut down as a child or whether they had the environment of being open. It doesn't really seem to have a correlation with that, but people that just tend to move past it and become that diamond from the pressure and all that thing. And then we went off into some other things, but that was an interesting
I think that we both can agree upon what an incredible gift that we have. All of us worldwide have to be inside this body, to be able to speak and express and to walk upon the land and feel and touch and love and experience by being in this body. That is such a gift that people, they look past and they don't see truly what a gift it is.
Definitely something we chose to come here for a reason, right? So, and a lot of it is, yes, we have missions, but we also came here to express and to love and to have our experiences and to just be here and experience in this physical suit.
Absolutely.
Physical suit. So,
It's
well,
been wonderful speaking with you.
super awesome conversation, Bear.
And
That's fun.
I know that this isn't going to be the last. So.
I'm sure we'll have so much more.